Now, the race to election 2024 is shaping up as the key aspirants seeking to lead the opposition NDC pick up nomination forms now to the representative of the former finance minister, Dr. Kwabena Duffuor, was at the NDC's headquarters to pick up the forms for the contest. This comes a day after the presumptive candidate, former President John Mahama, got Professor Alabi and regional chairman of the party to do the same for him, as the party readies to attempt to take over the reins of power from the governing New Patriotic Party. Tonight, my guest is a man who's been leading the communication for the former president. A former deputy communications minister himself, Felix Kwakye Ofosu, will make the case for the return of John Mahama. But as I said earlier on, former finance minister Dr. Kwabena Duffuor has making his own case for the same position. We will hear from my guest pretty soon. But first, listen to Dr. Kwabena Duffuor.
Well, you see, we want to have a very clean campaign, devoid of attacks. You understand? The president, former president, was the president between 2013 and 2016. His performance is there. You'll see it. Okay? I was not part of his government. I was the finance minister between 2009 and 2012. The performance is also there, it's clear. The difference is clear. As I mentioned, between 2009 and 2012, the cedi depreciated by 60 pesos, 1.2 to 1.8. Inflation, which was 18.1 when we took over, for 32 months was a single digit. The growth rate in 2010 reached 14.5% of GDP, okay? And in that year, Ghana was registered the fastest growth in the whole world. The fastest growing economy in the whole world. You understand? Unemployment came down to 2%, by 2.2 precisely. You understand? As a nation, we're able to produce cocoa, the mainstay of the Guinean economy, to the level of 1 million tons, or metric tons. So it's never happened in this country before. When we took over, reserves stood around 2 billion. When we were leaving, it was $5 billion plus. So the record is there. I'm not here to attack the former president, but he had a whole 4 years as the president. The records are there for every Ghanaian to talk about.
Now, you said you get this economy back in 2 years. What is fundamentally wrong with this economy that you think you can tweak to change things?
Discipline. Within your means. That's what you should know. Live within your means. And don't live from hand to mouth. It's been said by one wise man years ago, 1879 or so, said that any class of bread that lives from hand to mouth will ever be an inferior class.
So Dr. Kwabena Duffuor today is speaking after the team got to pick up the forms for him. He is going head to head. He's actually of the opinion that during the time he was finance minister, the economy did way better than under President John Mahama. So he's compared 2009, between 2009 and 2012 to 2013 and 2016. Is it fair? Is it factual?
Well,
does it represent the reality on the ground?
Well, by no means.
I'd not even have to start by welcoming you because you've been in this company.
Well,
basically,
I could pass for an employee of multimedia to I spent my entire day. But anyways, it goes to the territory. I appreciate the need to engage you so that the people of Ghana will know exactly what it is happening in the John Mahama campaign. But it was interesting watching Dr. Duffuor. First of all, he's held in high regard in the NDC and by the John Mahama campaign. He's a respectable part and parcel of our party. He's paid his dues in public office. But despite his longevity and experience, I'm a bit surprised about the quality of argument that he's putting up. You see, what is the basis for comparing a former finance minister and a former, president? There's no basis for comparison. Again, they attempt to create the impression that a finance minister on his own volition, unilaterally, develops economic policy and implements same. It's completely inaccurate. What happens is that the finance minister is only an implementer of government's economic policy. So President Mills was the president. Mm-hmm. He led the NDC campaign, during which we made specific commitments to the people of Ghana through a manifesto and dedicated policies. Indeed, the first pillar, or the third pillar in that Better Ghana Agenda manifesto, was growing the economy and ensuring that we achieve the level of prosperity that will inure to the benefit, collective benefit of Ghanaians. Mm. Because of those commitments, he set up structures to deliver this mandate. The first structure he set up was what we call the Economic Management Team, which since 1997 has become a convention. And indeed, the first chairman of the Economic Management Team under the Fourth Republic was President Mills himself. So he appreciates the importance of that body. It was by no means a nominal body. It was an active policy-making and determination body, exactly. So President Mahama, because he was vice president, then assumed chairmanship and leadership of the Economic Management Team, which was a team that developed the NDC's economic policy and programs. The finance minister at the time was a member of that Economic Management Team. And he then did the legwork, got marching orders after the EMT had made the determination of what policy to be implemented or not, and implemented it. After that, he then reported to the EMT, who then reported to the president of the day. So after the fact, if Dr. Dufour comes out to create the impression that he was a be-all and end-all of NDC economic policy, it is most unfortunate. It does not reflect the reality on the ground, because he was not the only person.
There's a foundation to this, and
yes.
I want to clarify that point.
Sure.
Because he has said, and I've interviewed him, he has said categorically previously that there was no functioning economic management team under President Mills. They had an economic advisory committee. This committee included the likes of the late Dr. Gobin Nankani, who previously worked with the IMF.
I'm fully aware of
others.
that.
Yes,
it was chaired by Mr. Ishbayamson.
Brilliant.
Yes.
So that's the point.
But that was an economic advisory council.
That is what he's
It is not
about.
the same.
He says the real people were managing the economy.
It's not
That
it's not true. It was an advisory council. So as the name implies, they were offering advice on economic policy. There's an economic management team. Advising and managing are two distinct things. So that economic management team included persons like the finance minister, the trade minister, the agri minister, and other sectorial heads, as well as representatives from the Bank of Ghana, who constitute that body, formulate policy based on available data and information, and give it to the finance minister to implement. You see, Dr. Dufour was not the only person in government at the time. Indeed, even I had interactions with him because I operated within government's communication team, and we communicated some of the achievements. So we have full knowledge of exactly what happened. But even the basis for comparison is flawed, because Dr. Dufour says in one breath that when it comes to economic performance between 2009 and January 2013, credit should be given to the finance minister. But between 2013 and 2016, the president should be held liable. I mean, the two situations do not jive. It appears that the Dufour campaign has gotten off to a disjointed start. They are unable to merge and synchronize their messaging, and therefore it does not sit well with the Ghanaian public. Their point is that a Dufour flag bearership of the NDC is a very wild fantasy. I'm quite frankly surprised that this is being tabled as a serious proposition. Really? It is not going to happen. He is not going to make any significant strides. I am even struggling to appreciate the motivation that is pushing this particular agenda. But that's another matter. Like I said, he's a respectable member of the party.
But you can't say you are struggling to appreciate the motivation.
Really, look. You are, of course.
Yeah, he said he's respectable.
Oh, of course. I have enormous respect for him. He has paid his dues. He has played
qualified
his role.
to
Of course. But any number of people, indeed, anybody who is above 40 and is a registered member of the NDC for a certain period qualifies to be flag bearer. It's a minimum criteria that many millions of people in the NDC will meet.
But for the
so it is not exceptional.
Standard set up in the party.
Absolutely.
From the likes of President Mills, President Mahama,
I agree that
he is in that category.
He is. But today, if you engage the ordinary rank and file of the NDC, they will tell you that by a long country mile, President Mahama is the man who stands the greatest chance of salvaging the fortunes of this country from an abysmal, terrible, disastrous government led by President Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia. It goes without mention. You are in the media. You are not a member of the NDC, but I'm sure you know all your prognostications, all your predictions around the coverage of this NDC primary show that President Mahama will emerge victor. So, and given that President Mr. Dufo cannot see, or Dr. Dufo, I beg your pardon, cannot see that he is doing this for the future, because people have different motivations for entering the race. There are some who say that they are only preparing the grounds for a future leadership role. But given Dr. Dufo's advanced age, and there's nothing wrong with it, I have enormous respect for the age, the experience in society. Given his advanced age, one cannot say that he's doing this for the future because age will not permit him to contest future flag. So what really is the motivation? Seeing as he knows, his campaign team is aware, everybody in Ghana, including toddlers, know that this campaign is going nowhere and that President Mahama will emerge overwhelming.
But it's not conditioning that has been said by the likes of yourself.
No.
Have you not made the people believe that is what the case really is supposed to be?
But we believe
you get regional chairmen to come and support.
Yes, because, you see, the average politician is reasonable.
Okay.
Human beings are rational entities. They think, they reason, they do assessment, they weigh options. So the regional chairmen who are experienced politicians and the rank and file of the NDC, many of whom have followed this party for decades and years, know who will be the most viable candidate in any given election. They look at the opposition being presented by the MPP. They see, and everybody around sees, that this country is in its worst shape ever. All those who have been around from Kwame Nkrumah to date will testify that this is the worst economic period we've been in. We have a government that has offered, and I will speak bluntly, they have offered the most useless leadership this country has seen in the last 67 years or 66 years of independence. We have a government that has systematically demolished our economy and destroyed it. We have a government that has imposed unprecedented suffering and pain and hardships on the people of this country. A government that has infiltrated and destroyed state institutions and stripped them of the credibility needed to foster confidence in the citizenry. We have a government that is trampling upon the rights of Ghanaians, that is showing an unwillingness to change direction. A government that does not respect the citizens that it governs. A government that deliberately dissipates scarce resources on frivolous, poorly planned, wasteful projects. From whose hands this country must be salvaged. If you are looking for somebody to do that, what you want is a steady, experienced hand who has seen it all and has been at the helm and has the capacity to make the assessment and deliver the sort of policies that would achieve that objective. And in that regard, it is President Mahama,
governor, a former finance minister,
but with a greater respect,
that recently said that you needed very economic brains in parliament to lead the team to make
but there's no shortage.
Arguments.
There's no shortage of economists within the NDC. Dr. Dufo, by every account, is a good economist. He's a brilliant economist. I engaged him. He's fantastic at the job. But there are equally fantastic people in the NDC as well. And times change. New ideas and systems come into place.
I get you.
So we do have a crop of young, vibrant, energetic, knowledgeable, highly educated, highly qualified individuals who are manning the economic positions of the NDC, even as we remain in opposition and are hopeful to get into government. So the notion that it is only one kind of economist who can deliver the goods is completely flawed and misplaced.
But you said we needed a steady hand.
So the steady hand.
But
you see, leadership just goes beyond just economic management. I highlighted about 10 different problems we are facing.
Yes.
And it is
but
not
you agree
just,
that the economy is
the number one topic.
Yes.
But President Mahama has sufficient experience in economic management. He was the head of the economic management team under which Dr. Dufo operated. President Mahama was the man who led the team that formulated the NDC's economic policy and blueprint when we were in government between 2009 and 2012 when he took over as president. Even as president, he was actively engaged. What many people do not know is that when we had the headwinds between 2014 and 2016, President Mahama, in addition to the economic management team chaired by the late Emisata, also set up the Presidential Advisory Group on the Economy called PAGE, which he chaired personally. And he is a very hands-on president who has deep knowledge and insights into governance, economic management, and all the other things that come together to make government successful in terms of its running and operations. He did all of that. So for Dr. Dufo to seek to isolate himself and heap praise on himself and exclude everybody else who played a role in managing the economy under the NDC is most regrettable and unfortunate. I'm not sure that there's a message that will resonate with the broad masses of the NDC. I appreciate, of course. Mindful
of the times you are in and mindful of what happened.
Yes, but of course, President Mahama's record as leader of the economic management team, the same position that Dr. Bawumia occupies today, and as president, who was actively engaged in economic management, is much better than what the MPP is offering. But so baseline, just a minute, baseline. If we were to look at the conditions today and compare it to the conditions in January 2017, every Ghanaian who is rational and reasonable will choose that period over what we have now. So I'm not even sure what Dr. Adufor's attack seeks to achieve.
No, but he's saying that you are comparing two periods, right? It's to be the leader of the party at the flag bearer level. The election should necessarily be between people who are contesting the elections.
Of
an
course.
internal election first.
Of course.
What he's saying is that within this internal election, the period I was finance minister was better than the period.
So then Dr. Adufor should be contesting Mr. Setepe, who was finance minister. No, of course, that's what he said. Yes, but that's what he said. But you see, the point is that he can make the point that if I become flag bearer, I will be able to do A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
But to say that I was minister, somebody was first vice president, who is senior to you in government, and then later president, where you've not got into, and seek to compare yourself to that person, is most flawed. Today, if President Mahama compares himself to President Akufo, there's basis. Because they have held the same position.
Okay.
Even if he compares himself, he lowers the bar a bit and compares himself to Alhaji Bawumia, there will be basis because he has also served as vice president and served as head of the economic management team. But he has not been finance minister. The person who has been finance minister under an NDC government, apart from Dr. Adufor, is Mr. Setekpe. So if Dr. Adufor wants to engage Mr. Setekpe in a contest, that is fine. But to the extent that he has not been president, he does not, despite his longevity and experience in Ghana's financial sector, he does not match up to where President Mahama has gotten to because he has been president. That is a basic fact. So if he wants to compare, let him compare properly. You see, you don't compare apples to oranges. That is what Mr. Adufor is doing. Dr. Adufor is doing.
I mean, another play here is the fact that I'm not sure the vice president himself has said it openly, but there are people within his circles today. There are people who whisper those words very openly, that the vice president is not actively in charge of any such economic management team.
But
in fact, when the issues are raised about where the economy is today, that's one of the very bold defense they provide, even though he himself has not said it loudly. Is it not probably possible that one can be chairman of the economic management team and not be necessarily in charge of the realities on the ground?
When the NDC was in power,
the
economic management team was an active entity. They were actively engaged, and it included the finance minister himself.
Okay.
I know that for a fact because I was also actively engaged.
Because he disputes that, actually.
Well, it is called the politics of convenience. Today it is convenient to do so. That's why he's doing so, and with the greatest respect to him. But the point is that argument from Dr. Bawumia's or Alhaji Bawumia's propagandists, I would call them, is most untenable. Look, in 2016, there's a video which I'm sure you do possess because you guys have a penchant for playing those videos, where President Akufo-Addo stood at Bawaleshi, where the MPP held his last rally, or one of his last rallies, where he held the hand of Dr. Bawumia and told the whole world that God had blessed him, President Akufo-Addo, or then candidate Akufo-Addo, with a brainy, brilliant, young economist called Dr. Bawumia, who was going to be in charge of the management of the economy. Prior to that, Dr. Bawumia himself had mounted platforms claiming to possess vast economic knowledge and wisdom and capacity to manage this economy. In 2019, Dr. Bawumia led a series of town hall meetings where he, as the head of the economic management team, engaged the people of Ghana and spoke about specific work that he was doing. Indeed, one of them was that ill-fated, poorly conceived benchmark revenue reductions. You recall that?
Yeah.
He then went to Kumasi.
He did actually announce it at one of these events,
Absolutely. He went to Kumasi again to tout what he claimed to be the government's achievements. There is a video of Mr. Yao Osafo-Maafo, one of the most experienced hands in this government, touting Dr. Bawumia's leadership of the economic management team. So how then are we told, later in the day, post facto, after the fact, that suddenly the man who touted himself as the head of the economic management team and who was in charge of the formulation of the MPP's economic policy has suddenly become what you call infantis in Papenin, essentially, with the greater respect, I don't mean it in any derogatory manner, a useless leader. A useless leader, that's what in Papenin means, a useless leader. So now Bawumia is being projected in that light because some people believe it is convenient to detach him from the woeful, abysmal, catastrophic underperformance of the Akufo-Addo administration. You see, that will not watch.
So
let me put
the argument finally.
It cannot fly.
The argument is that the economic management team has not, in all fairness, had any proper legislative or legal backing.
It is true.
So it is merely in effect an advisory team in all fairness.
It is not an advisory team. You see, no. So there are presidential advice, like the presidential advisory group. Okay. The name right away implies.
Yeah, that is barely advisory.
It's advisory. Then there was the Economic Advisory Council, chaired by Mr. Ishmael Yamson and President Mills. They were purely advisory. But the economic management team features active handlers of the economy. So it has the governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
The governor of the Bank of Ghana has no time to come and waste on a nominal committee because he is a serious person, actively engaged in the management of the monetary policy of government or the state. There's a finance minister, there's a trade minister, there's a Greek minister, and there are other key government officials, economic sector ministers who sit on that committee. And the reason for that is so that there's uniformity and consistency in economic policy making. When they finish, the respective ministries are giving their marching orders. The finance minister is given responsibility for fiscal policy, essentially managing the country's finances. That's what the finance minister does. But the finance minister does not dream of a vision, does not determine suomoto on his own economic policy and go and implement without recourse to all the layers and structures put in place to determine economic policy. That does not happen. If that happens under any government, then that government clearly is bound to crash. So you cannot have a situation where any finance minister can say that he is a law unto himself, he is a god, and therefore does not render account to any superior authority. It doesn't happen anywhere.
Does not depend on the relationship between the finance minister and the president.
Even if the finance minister is the president's son or wife, he still has to account to the president. Not so?
I guess, yes.
I'm sure your management gives you autonomy in terms of editorial discretion. But at the end of the day, you have to account to them in terms of your performance.
That's true.
So the fact that the president may not be the person handling the day-to-day management of the economy does not mean that there's no accountability. You can have a president who is very aloof, but at the very least, periodically, he will get a briefing on where the economy is headed. If he is not satisfied, he will bring changes. He will remove the finance minister. So this argument is invented. You know, it is a post facto rationalization of Bawumia's bankruptcy, his utter incompetence and hopelessness as head of the economic management team is what is spawning this most untenable narrative that he does not have a say. So what was he doing? Please, what was he doing on the platform in 2019, announcing the benchmark revenue reversals and grinning from year to year and taking credit for it? But all the lectures that he has held since he became president, what was the basis for it if he was not in charge of anything?
But one way we can know this for sure, without him actually coming out to say it, is we know that in the studios of Peace FM, the man had, prior to coming into office, stated categorically that, for example, you cannot implement e-levy. And the e-levy in and of itself was a bad policy.
But that was
if this was before 2016.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if the government comes into power and they proceed to do e-levy as we see it to be today.
But it does not mean that the vice president was opposed to it. At least he has never said so. It is what has simply happened.
He has not officially said so.
No, what has happened. But he has not unofficially said so.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. The point is that the vice president may have been confronted with realities.
Okay.
And it happens a lot in government. I have been in government, so I know that you can take positions in opposition. But a certain reality may force your hand to do something. But a change, look, I have been...
So you mean it's not evidence that he's really not in charge of the economy?
No, not at all. Listen, I have been in government. When I was in government, there was some contestation, or if you like, intra or inter-ministerial disagreement over how to collect some taxes in relation to the communication sector. The finance minister felt, or the finance ministry felt, that should be the function of the finance ministry. We in the communication ministry also felt that it was within our responsibility or remit to do so. At the end of the day, it was resolved. Once it was resolved, all of us were bound by the position, the collective position taken by cabinet and by extension government. So the fact that you may have held one view in opposition and that your government may have done something contrary does not mean that you were opposed to it. At the time that decision was made, that we must toe a certain line. So I cannot, and I'm sure that the people of Ghana are fully aware, that Bawumia cannot move an inch from the responsibility that has to be taken for his destruction of the Ghanaian economy. Indeed, we have had an instance where a vice president disagreed with his government's policies and publicly said so, and actually was headed for a headlong confrontation with the president. I'm talking about Mr. Acquah. Absolutely, he was vice president.
Yeah.
I'm not passing judgment as to whether or not he was right. That is beside the point. But at the very least, you cannot fault him for being principled and standing up for what he believes in.
But was it not politically suicidal?
It was not politically suicidal.
Was he not on his way to be the running mate of the opposition?
No.
Yeah, because I mean,
he could still have kept quiet and still be the running mate of the opposition. Nothing would have prevented him from doing so. Indeed, the fact that he even became the running mate of the opposition showed that he was a man with conviction. He believed in what he was doing, even though I would disagree with the fundamental basis of his position. But you have to respect his principled nature. So if Bawumia is only there out of convenience, he does not have the cojones, he doesn't have the fortitude, the conviction, the belief in himself, he doesn't have the confidence to stand up to wrongdoing. What he essentially is, and what his propagandists are telling us, is that he is a hapless observer who has watched on for our economy to be criminally destroyed. And how is a hapless observer qualified to become president if he does not have the capacity to call out people mismanaging the economy? He doesn't have the capacity to stand up and be counted. Why? What does he lose if today he resigns his position on principle because he disagrees with the way the economy is being managed? To the extent that he is quiet, and I don't believe that he's not involved, he is actively involved. He is happy enjoying his specs. He is happy riding a motorcade. He is happy taking a salary. He is happy traveling around the world at state expense. Indeed, if you check the recent expenditure outcomes presented to Parliament, it shows that something he called urgent expenditure at his office consumed 4 million Ghana cedis of the Ghanaian people's tax. He is happy enjoying that. And yet, when it comes to taking responsibility, he wants to flee. He wants to blame you and I for the mess in the economy. But as I said, he has not said that anywhere.
Okay, of course, he has not openly made that point.
What I suspect is that they are hired propagandists who are trying to absolve him.
Oh, okay. So that's what you think is happening.
Responsibility.
All right.
For electoral reasons, so that Ghanaians cannot fault him for the mess. But as they say, he lies bad. Okay. He will bear responsibility for this mess.
Forgive me, but I need to move to the other issues that have come up. But you see, basically, this is about John Mahama, who lost election 2016.
That is true.
John Mahama, who lost election 2020.
Yes.
He is, in the history of this country, in the Fourth Republic, for example, the only sitting president who have lost an election with a big margin.
That is true.
Which was reduced in the next election. There are people who ask for a president who has only one term to be in office and cannot do 2 terms. For a man who has been president before, exactly what has John Dramani Mahama to tell the people of this republic or do that he has not done before?
To begin with, there's no president who is voted for to serve for 8 terms. Every president is voted for to serve for 4 years. Sorry, 4 years, not, I meant 8 years.
But the track record.
No, what I mean is that every president, every election in Ghana
is for 4 years.
Gives a mandate to somebody to become president for 4 years. That is what it is. It is after that 4 years that people seek to renew your mandate if they are satisfied, or a majority of the people are satisfied with the work that you've done. So the argument about what you are coming to do in 4 years, that's not arise. President Kufuor had a mandate to serve for 4 years. So then in 2004, it was renewed. Same with President Akufo-Addo. He was not voted for in 2016 to serve 8 years. So it is a non-starter. But the point is that, you see, there's a baseline. President Mahama may have lost elections in 2016. At the time, Ghanaians believed that the NPP had something better to offer. But bottom line, baseline, which is an indisputable fact, which even a toddler would admit, which even the most rabid MPP Akufo-Addo fanatic would admit, is that the MPP has been abysmal. They have been poorer than any other government we've had, purely on the basis of the facts, objective reality on the ground. So that is the bottom line. Now, if they have been bad, the next thing that happens is that they ought to be denied an opportunity to continue with their governance when their term ends on January 6, 2025. That is bottom line. Because you cannot be this bad and expect a renewal of your mandate. After that determination has been made, the people of Ghana then will cast their eyes across the political field and see who has the organizational capacity to, first of all, earn their mandates, form government, and deliver on the vision that they espouse. It is obviously the NDC. Now, the duty then will be that of the NDC to convince Ghanaians that the mandate that will be bestowed on us will be used judiciously and in their interest, and that we will govern in a manner that, first of all, halts this economic disaster, this economic catastrophe this economic Armageddon that Bawumia, Akufo-Addo, and Ken Ofori-Atta have foisted on us. And then number 2, we are willing to wring critical constitutional, political, governance, and administrative changes to meet the aspirations of the people and set our country on a path where no government can do the sort of damage that the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia administration has done. I recognize that there are 2 classes of opponents that the NDC has to deal with. The first class is the arrogant MPP fanatic who brims with overconfidence and who swore to the highest heavens that their party was going to do better than anything else we had seen. On the evidence of the performance their party has put up, their confidence is punctured. Their veneer of arrogance has been shattered. The artifice they built around themselves is splintered into smithereens. So because of that, they have looked for a defense mechanism, which is that all parties are the same and that the NDC is not an alternative, so that they can insulate themselves from the reality that they have offered the most appalling governance in our history. That class of individual does not need any response because the reality exposes him. However, there's also another class of individual who is not necessarily non-aligned. They may even have voted for the MP, but they are not aligned. They only look out for good governance.
They are worried about what's
absolutely
happening.
They may not necessarily even hanker after day-to-day governance. Yeah. But they look forward to broad governance and political and administrative changes that will reflect a certain new direction for the country.
More business.
There'll be more
business for people.
Absolutely, there'll be more efficient governance. Our constitutional arrangements will be more favorable. Some, for instance, do not want to hear about ex gratia.
That's true.
Others believe that the president has too much power. Others believe that there should be more decentralization. Others believe that there should be some constitutional reforms. Others believe, for instance, that dual citizens should be able to vote. Others believe that there are too many judges. Others say there are too many ministers. Yeah. Some believe the size of government is too much. So all manner of opinions are held, but they come together to form the basis for some dissatisfaction with the way that the Fourth Republic has operated. For those class of people, I can assure them that the NDC has them covered. Because John Mahama and the NDC, as I indicated, are willing to wring far-reaching changes that will reflect these expectations. Indeed, President Mahama is currently not, he's on his way to Nigeria. There's a group called the West African Elders, made up of eminent personalities within West Africa and some former heads of state, who have formed a mediation group, who moving into trouble spots to resolve conflicts. And the Nigerian elections, I mean, the vibe around it suggests that there's potential for some confrontation. So he is there to lead the group to help resolve any problems that may arise out of that election. So he will be there until the end of this month, 28th, by which time we hope that the elections would have ended peacefully and there will be no need for an extended stay. He will be back at that time. And any day from that period, he will announce a date on which he will engage the people of Ghana on why he wants them to entrust them with responsibility. But the bottom line is that when you have the sort of crisis that Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia have plunged us in, what you require is an immediate cessation of that crisis and then changes that ensure that the crisis does not recur. To do that, you need a steady, experienced hand who has seen it all. Because you see, we do not have time for experimentation. And I'll give you an analogy. You have held the fort on this program Upfront for quite some time. If for any reason the authorities in multimedia deem you unfit to continue, they are unlikely to bring somebody with less capacity than you. They will bring somebody of equal standing, even if the person does not work here, maybe from another station, but has a platform equal to yours, similar experience, similar capacity, and give him some KPIs to meet. So when you are in crisis, the last thing you need is the involvement of those who have created a crisis. Alhaji Bawumia, who some MPP supporters say should be their flag bearer, should not come anywhere near a ballot paper, given his abysmal, appalling performance. Indeed, I say that it is most offensive that after such a horrendous performance, he will even think about putting himself on the ballot paper for Ghanaians to make a determination on him. He should come nowhere near that. Maybe there are others in the MPP who should do so. But the point is that the MPP ought to be excluded from governance between 2025 and beyond because they are the problem. You see, the other problem we have is that not only have they plunged us here through reckless, near criminal mismanagement of the economy, they are simply unable to change. How many times have you in the media, and I watch your program, State of Play, where in a humorous manner you tackle very serious matters. I watch you on the morning show. I watch you on Upfront. I watch you run commentary on governance and politics. And I'm sure you agree that we have a government that is simply too bloated. There's almost unanimity. Indeed, even members of the MPP do say publicly that the size of this government is a drain on scarce resources. So you would expect that at a time that we've gone into such crisis, the president and his vice president will be minded to ring in these changes and ensuring that there's greater efficiency and less cost in the running of government so that we make some savings to address some of the most basic problems we have. Indeed, I listened to a broadcast emanating from your station last week where I learned that up to 800,000 Ghanaian school children do not have access to desks. They sit on the floor.
Yeah, there's schools of shame.
Absolutely. Now, look at a problem like that. We don't have capacity to meet such a basic requirement. Yet, this president believes that government must be bloated. Let me give you an example. You know, I have this document here, dated 28 March 2022.
Okay.
It is the annual report to Parliament on staff of presidential office, January to December 2021. Indeed, you can peruse it.
Yeah.
If you look at this report, there are 337 political appointees at the presidency, adding on to about 680 civil and public servants. Now, you tell me, Raymond.
And because this has come up previously,
yeah.
And of course, I mean, I know the difference between a presidential staffer,
and
a presidential aide, and a staff in that particular office. I know.
Exactly.
But the contention was really that when the reference was being made, people were talking about presidential staff as being that number.
That is just you see.
But of course, I know the difference.
See,
but
that is just a play on words. What has happened is that those who know, I know. A presidential staffer, in fact, is equivalent to a minister.
Yeah.
A presidential aide is equivalent to a deputy minister. But there are staff who do other things. They are mostly political appointees. But you see, what has happened that under this government, every Tom, Dick, and Harry holds themselves out as a presidential staffer. That's what they go out saying. So even a driver gets hold of a gutter and calls himself a presidential staffer. Somebody employed in the communication outfit who just sits on Facebook to attack opponents of government calls himself a presidential staffer because they have a vehicle and they can drive around. So there's general confusion among the populace in terms of the nomenclature.
Yeah.
But the real thing is that there are staff made up of political appointees and civil servants who head various agencies or man various agencies under the presidency. But to have 337 staff or political appointees in the presidency is simply too much and a deliberate and criminal waste of resources. The other issue.
What was the highest number under John Mahama?
Oh, I think I will get you the exact figures, but it comes nowhere.
But you certainly would know.
Yes, I do not want to give you an inaccurate figure, but I can tell you on authority, and I will bring you the report. Indeed, you can access it independently in Parliament. That we came absolutely nowhere near these humongous figures. It will be about a third of what you have now. But if you have 337 political appointees, with no, look, they have such bizarre designations. They have somebody they call a policy associate. They have a media advisor to the president. When there is a communication director and two deputies, there's an information minister with a swathe of government spokesperson. There's a spokesperson on governance, spokesperson on infrastructure, spokesperson on security, spokesperson on social services. Then, in addition to this, they have a media advisor to the president who has a technical advisor. The media advisor has a technical advisor and has another advisor on communication. I mean, all working in the presidency. So at the last count, there are about 17 people working in the communication structure of the presidency alone. In addition to the army of government spokespersons and sectorial spokespersons that they have. In addition to the PROs in the various ministries, departments, and agencies. They also have all manner of special assistants and aides to ministers and deputy ministers and what have you. This is waste. In addition to this government decides that, indeed, in 2017, he actually appointed 125 ministers. Another criminal, deliberate waste of public resources. We even had a minister for what? Procurement. When we had the National Procurement Authority. We had a minister for policy, planning and evaluation and monitoring. When almost every government agency has a PPME outfit. We had a minister for planning. When there are planning departments in almost every government agency. In addition to this, they decided that work that was already being done by existing agencies will be duplicated. So, for instance, the Ghana Education Service, they've been in existence for about 70 years, since colonial times.
I need you to wrap up quickly on this point for me, because I'll be going briefly to Parliament and returning to the studios on this one. But
so, this government is simply refusing
to
downsize government. In addition to this, they can take money and say that they want to build a $450 million cathedral at a time when school children do not have access to basic amenities to use for their education. So we need a change, which John Mahama is willing to offer. But like I indicated, details of this, indeed, I urge you also.
Because I was come to that.
No problem.
I've seen previous statements, but you give me a second. Let's go to Parliament now, and Kwaku Asante is standing by to give us the latest happening there. We understand there's a situation that you sure will be interested in.
Right. So just about 5 minutes ago, almost all the security personnel in Parliament were asked to go into the chamber. We know that for about 3 hours now, the members of Parliament had been debating the proposals of the EC to introduce a new CI, which will make the Ghana card the sole requirement to enroll onto the voters register. The minority's position had been made clear by the former minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, who said that the minority were unable to support that proposal because it will disenfranchise Ghanaians. They've been using the positions that had been canvassed by Dr. Aferijan and a number of people, and they had been in spirited fashion, been arguing against this position of the Electoral Commission. The NPP majority side, on the other hand, say that the Electoral Commission is an independent agency that should be able to do so. So Parliament adjourned today's sitting and went into a committee of the whole. A little bit uncharacteristic of the committee of the whole, they asked all journalists to get out of the chamber. So we all did move out of the chamber. But then we heard a lot of noise in there. And the report we are getting is that MPs were at each other's throat. And the kind of scenes we saw there during the consideration of the e-levy, as well as the election of Speaker Bagbin, those were some of the scenes that had just happened in Parliament. And to confirm what very deep throat sources, very people who are familiar with the situation, who were in the chamber, told us, we just saw that the marshal asked all security personnel in Parliament who are around the chamber at the moment to go in there. It's taking some time to calm the waters in there, and we've seen a number of MPs come out to the coffee shop. You will clearly see in their face the exasperation, the anger that seeks to confirm that kind of fight that has just happened on the floor. What we understand is that the minority say that they are not happy that the Electoral Commission boss herself, Madam Jane Mensah, has not been attending to Parliament to answer questions on this proposed CI, that at all points in time, she's been asking her deputies to stand in for her. Today in Parliament, Deputy Electoral Commissioner Bosman Asari and Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Sirebo Kweku, were the ones who represented the EC on the floor of the House. The minority would not take into that. They will not allow these persons to represent the EC because they want Jane Mensah herself to be here. They are also against what they say is the majority side trying to railroad their way through and put this CI before Parliament. Clearly, the rhetoric, as we've been seeing over the past few weeks, has shown that the minority are not going to allow this go through if the proposal to make the Ghana card the sole requirement to enroll onto the voters register is not removed. That is the first. The second proposal to conduct limited voters registration exercise only at the EC's district offices. So some kind of fierce disagreement has just happened on the floor, and the minority side are saying that more of this will happen if the EC and the majority side try to railroad their way through Parliament to lay this controversial new CI.
You are not in Parliament, but exactly what is the state now? Have they suspended sitting? Have they adjourned till tomorrow? Or they are still bent on going ahead with this in-camera sitting?
So the in-camera sitting is still happening, as we understand. We've seen a number of the leadership of the House come out to the coffee shop to try and dialogue, to try and see how they could calm things down a little bit. The understanding is that the way things are going, the agreement may be to just adjourn, close down this committee of the whole meeting, and try and dialogue more and come back. And today, quite uncharacteristic of the way the Speaker of Parliament steers things in the House, it normally takes a break right after when the sitting begins. But today he has been in throughout. After around 6 o'clock, when this committee of the whole started, he was around, and he left for the first Deputy Speaker to take charge of that committee of the whole. I've just seen a number of policemen now just come through, headed towards the chamber. So our understanding is that a little calm has returned in the chamber, and the leadership are going to judge on what they are going to do, either to suspend this committee of the whole and hold some more consultation and then return at a later date.
Very interesting developments from Parliament. Kweku, thank you so much. I'm sure at 7 on Joy News Pram, you should be hearing the latest development there. And the MPs who are in that chamber should be speaking to us about what's really causing the commotion in the House, as we have just had a hint of in this particular engagement. We'll be coming back in studio, but that's a very interesting topic, though.
Well, again,
yes, I'm bringing it to you.
Of course. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it's been a very...
And the John Mahama campaign is certainly interested in the matter.
Oh, yes. So
what is happening is clear. The NPP has lost it. They know that the abysmal performance gives them a one-way ticket out of government. So they want to rig the election ab initio, even before the first vote is cast. Because of that, and since 2018, they've installed what clearly can be seen to be MPP studios at the Electoral Commission. They are all too willing.
The current leaders of the
entire leadership.
But of course,
everybody knows.
But you know how Electoral Commission.
Yeah, but they are MPP studios.
They are appointed. Their process is quite clear.
Indeed, what happened was that Madam Salotose was bundled out of the position through some ruse and subterfuge, and Jimensa, a known MPP sympathizer, Bosman Asawi, and
you mean the former IA boss?
I'm not an MPP sympathizer. I don't know. I'm being
just want to be clear because
yes, of course, she was IA boss.
Positions that we communicated.
Indeed, that position of her as an MPP sympathizer is consolidated by evidence of her conduct at the IA. I don't want to go into it. Otherwise, we will need a whole day. But the point is that
what is happening now is
yes, I'm coming to that.
They are worried.
What is happening now?
Is not appearing.
What is happening now is that she is all too willing to aid Akufo-Addo install a puppet to replace him when he leaves office. Because he knows that on the evidence of their performance, they cannot win a genuine election. So the reason why there's this contestation...
In all fairness, there's constitutional instrument conversation that's happening in Parliament.
But the constitutional instrument
is about the next
exactly,
election.
But it has come out of a certain thing.
And the contention is that the ID cards require
absolutely.
Registration.
But why such a senseless position by the EC? First of all, so the EC is telling us that your voter ID card, my voter ID card, which I can pull out for you, which enabled me vote in Abu Asebu Kwamankesi, Zion BJHS polling station, is suddenly not effective. It cannot identify me. I need a Ghana card to be able to vote. I say it is senseless. And the reason why it is senseless is that it is what Akufo-Addo wants, to help him rig elections and put a stooge in his stead. But that it is not. I am saying, listen.
No, I get you.
No, listen. You see, Raymond. I am telling you without fear.
You cannot make
Raymond, but it is clear.
That is what the president wants.
But why?
Because the president he's not the one who constitutes it.
Why do you think President Akufo-Addo put Jean Mensa there to joke? You think he appointed her for fun, or because he likes her so much? The point is that it is part. Listen, it is part of a grand design to rig the elections even before the first ballot.
That's what you believe.
Because they know that any attempt to tamper with the elections proper will generate such pushback from the opposition and worried and concerned Ghanaians. So they want to create a situation where opposition parties are disadvantaged ab initio because they control the Ghana card issuance process. As we speak, the National Identification Authority itself is not able to say that they will be able to issue cards in time for everybody who is qualified to vote by the time that this process is over. Yet the EC, who spent in excess of $80 million compiling a new register only 2-3 years ago and gave you and I voter ID cards, which identifies us clearly, is accepted as a valid form of identification for electoral purposes, through which President Akufo-Addo was retained as president, is saying that suddenly, within a matter of 2 years, that card is not effective at identifying us. But we need a card that is not available to everybody. Go and look at the numbers, and you will see an inordinate advantage towards the Ashanti region, because that is their stronghold. That is why I say...
That's what you believe, sir.
I don't believe. No. I say that it is a senseless scheme by this government led by Akufo-Addo and Jean Mensa to rig the elections ab initio. And let us put it on record that if they believe that we will kill over and allow them push this senseless policy through, then they are grossly mistaken. That is why you are seeing those things in Parliament. So those things will be repeated until sense is pumped into Jean Mensa's head, and she refrains from being a stooge for Akufo-Addo and is willing to do any and everything that she is told to do. You see, they cannot insult the intelligence of Ghanaians. You and I pay taxes from our hard-earned money. They used $80 million of this to compile a new register only 2-3 years ago. Put us through inconvenience. to go and register in order to be able to vote. Then a few years down the line, with that basis, what is wrong with the current register? Tell me, did they not compile it themselves? So why do you need identification? That because of the limitations of the NIA's processes, they are unable to give to everybody who is of voting age before the elections are due. Why the rush to make the national ID the center around which everything revolves? And the reason is simple. I know it. Because they know they control the process. They deliberately frustrate issuance in places where they know the opposition has numbers and facilitate issuance in places where they have the numbers.
And that's
indeed,
you
no,
really
look, but there are more people,
frankly,
listen, there are more people living in Greater Accra than the Ashanti region.
That's true.
But somehow, there are more people with national ID cards in the Ashanti region than the Greater Accra region, which actually is the nerve center, has all the facilities, and has the system and network to back easier facilitation. It is a smaller geographical region than the Ashanti region. But somehow, the people in Greater Accra have less cards than the Ashanti region. And I'm telling you without fear of...
But that's probably out of the difficulties with registration and all of that.
But how can... Listen, how can it be
effectively?
Listen, in terms of modernity, urbanization, facilities, and capacity to do something like this, the road network in Accra is much better than anywhere else. It is easier for people to move within Accra than anywhere else in this country. The NIA office in Accra is bigger than anywhere else. It is a smaller geographic location, and it is easier to reach people. The telecommunication systems in Accra are the best in Ghana, and yet there are fewer people with cards in Accra than there are in the Ashanti region. And I am saying, without mincing words, it is a senseless attempt by this government led by Akufo-Addo to install a stooge who will cover up for the crimes they've committed against us, and that is why they are getting the message to do this.
Yes, that point you have made, but I'm coming to wrap up on this one. Hopefully they resolve it in Parliament. Hopefully some understanding of
there will be no resolution until that senseless EI is withdrawn. That is the position of the NDC.
Is there not a middle line possible?
What's middle line? The middle line, you see, and I expect people like yourself who are leading lives in our society and have access to media platforms, you see, challenge the indiscretion of leadership. Does it make sense to you that $80 million of your hard-earned taxpayers' money was used for a previous register that has no difficulty? That is a register that was used to elect President Akufo-Addo for a second term. Up to today, what flaw has been determined in the system that requires a new system? The only reason why they are doing it is that they know that it is not easy for everybody to get that card. And the fewer people they are voting in 2024, the better it is for them as a party because they have failed.
But would it not be unconscionable for anybody to be refused the right to vote merely because they can't?
But that is what they are going to do. If you don't have a Ghana card, if this CI goes through and you do not have a Ghana card, you will not be able to vote. They are willing to perpetrate evil. Why? This is a government that had no difficulty having its agents gun down 14-year-olds in elections so that they will win. What else can they not do? So if you sit down and allow this injustice to prevail, what we are heading for is chaos, because you can imagine the reaction of people who go to polling stations and are not able to vote because they don't have Ghana cards, which is no fault of theirs. The NIA does not have the capacity to be able to issue these cards in the numbers required to meet the requirements of the EC. So what is the rush? What is wrong? Raymond, tell me, when you went to vote in your polling station, what is wrong with the ID card that you used? Were you not identified? Indeed, is the system not biometric? That makes it possible for anybody to check whether you are even without the ID. Indeed, even without the ID card, the register has pictures. So Raymond, I can tell your face. I have been a polling agent before, as far back as 2005. The polling station where I was remote. It was in a remote community, but I had a register. So all I needed was somebody who was conversant with people in the community. The moment somebody approached the polling station,
we know who this
he was able to hint me the name. So I'll go and check. I see the person's picture clearly, even before he or she gets to the table. So the system we have is sufficiently robust to check against electoral malpractices. So there's really nothing broken to warrant fixing. But I am making the point again that this is a senseless maneuver. It's a senseless maneuver to rig elections have been issued in favor of the MP.
Felix, I'm wrapping up on this conversation.
Absolutely.
I want us to return to the contest of who leads the NDC.
President Mahama will lead the NDC, without question. Without question.
Is that an attempt to not even the playing field?
The playing field is even. Even in the media network. Multimedia is reputed to be way ahead of some organizations. It doesn't mean that the NCA gives you any special dispensation.
Not at all.
It is just that your quality seeps through. So other organizations cannot compare themselves to you. You take the time to develop talent. You have the structures and systems to make sure that you give up the best, which is a cut above the rest. It is the same with this contest. President Mahama is a cut above the rest of the competition, despite the respectability of all those who want to vie. And people in the NDC, and indeed the larger Ghanaian public, have seen this. It is the reason why he is overwhelming favorites to win this. It does not mean that the rest cannot do the job, but there's someone who can do the job better. Also, Raymond, do not forget that elections are a costly endeavor. One of the things that is most required in elections is face and name recognition of the candidate. President Mahama can contest elections in Ghana without a single T-shirt, poster, or billboard. The moment you mention his name, even a toddler can identify him readily. The same cannot be said for Dr. Dufo. There are many people who cannot make him out if he walks on the street of Okumimle here today. The same cannot. If President Mahama makes the mistake of walking here, he will be mobbed. You will panic because of the security situation it will create. The same cannot be said of Dr. Dufo. So why do we leave somebody with this level of marketability and reach and go for somebody who we have to spend millions of cedis to prop up in the eyes of the electorate? I don't think that we will do ourselves any favors.
So the alternative, as Gabi lies saying, the alternative is empty. The alternative is
well, he supports the MTS government in history, so he should not waste our time with such calls. If he had any substance, or if his government had any substance, we won't be here. So we have substance. That is why our record is much better than his uncle Akufo-Addo's record.
I'm grateful to you for making time this evening. When the former president delivers the speech on the agenda, we should be able to go into
I'll be more than happy to be here. Yes.
Folks,
thank you
that's where we end today's edition of Upfront. Many thanks to you for watching.